All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. How's
Hey,
everybody doing today? Well, how are you doing, Kevin?
Excellent. Well, now that I'm on the show with you.
Yeah. All right, we're going to give just a couple of minutes for people to join, as always. In the meantime, I'm going to put up a slide here, just so that everyone can get a sense for the kind of things that we'll be talking about today. And yeah, so while we wait for people to join, we'll just banter about here. How have your Teslas been doing, Kevin?
Excellent. The winter's been up until the last few weeks, it's been pretty mild winter. We haven't got a lot of snow. But no, the new scheduling feature that Tesla's added to their software has been well utilized. Let's put it that way. So I used to use an external app to schedule the warming and the departure of my car before the actual upgrade of the internal software. So no need for that external app anymore. It works great. Really enjoying it. So
well, that's good. I don't know. Just for people joining here, we're just going to banter for a moment while we wait for people to join. We're just talking about Teslas, of course, because it is a Tesla channel, and that's what we do. We talk about Tesla. So Kevin was just going over, I don't know, the scheduling stuff and things that he likes to do with his Teslas. Yeah, I thought, I was thinking to myself that with the COVID-19 situation, I don't know about you, Kevin, but I haven't been doing a lot of driving. I've put 1,000 kilometers, which is 620 miles on our new Model X since we got it in late November. So not much driving for me. How about yourself?
you mean Model Y? You said Model X.
Oh yeah, Model Y. Sorry, I got too many Teslas.
Yes, nice problem to have. No, I've made a point, man, of trying to spend as much time in the car as I can. So, I've got a big German Shepherd who likes lots of exercise, and so I look for dog parks near and far, and so we tend to go for quite the drives. Just because, honestly, I miss. I used to do a commute to downtown Toronto. You know my commute's pretty long, and I actually really enjoyed my commute with my Teslas. And it's one of the things I really miss about working from home is my commute. And as strange as that may sound, but
I know, isn't it weird to say that? I miss my commute.
Yeah, I do.
But when you have a Tesla, that's kind of what happens, right?
It's my Zen time, right? It's my total Zen time. So I made a point of trying to continue using the cars. I mean, clearly I'm not using it as much, but no, I would say we put about, I don't know, maybe 1,000 kilometers a week between the two cars. So
okay, well, you're doing a lot more driving than I am. All right, it looks like we should just get started here. We've waited for people to join. I see some people have joined. We've got some questions coming in. So thank you, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. We just wanted to give you a kind of a quick overview before we get started on the type of things that we'll be talking about today. And just to back up a little step, so Kevin and I started doing this. I think this is our third in a series of kind of, I guess, podcasts, for lack of a different term, basically geared, like targeted towards people who are thinking about buying a Tesla or have just purchased a Tesla. So, we're very specific, and the purpose of doing this is just, we want to help you make sure that your experience is going to be as great as the experience that Kevin and I have had with our deliveries and with post-delivery and enjoying our Teslas. So that's why we do this. This is for you folks out there, and we will take your questions. We will get to as many of them as we can. But like I said, I just want to talk a little bit about the types of things that we'll be covering today. So two main categories, what happens after you place that order, and what are the things that you should be thinking about doing before delivery. And then the second thing that we're going to talk about is what's next immediately after delivery, and some of the things that you should be thinking about or be doing. So that's kind of the scope of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to pass it over to Kevin for a bit, talk a little bit about who he is and how he's on the show and how he's qualified. Even though you may have seen our previous ones, just want to make sure everyone's familiar with who we are and why you would listen to us. Kevin?
Thanks, Paul. So apologies for those who heard me last time, but I've had my first Tesla Model X 2017. Since September of 2017, I've put around 70,000 miles on it, or 110,000 kilometers. I also have a Model 3 rear-wheel drive long range. Picked it up in June of 2018. I have about 35,000 or 60,000 kilometers, 35,000 miles on it. So well over 100,000 miles of driving experience in almost 4 years. Love talking about my Teslas. I do a ton of research. I talk to a ton of people. And I love to, I've driven all over Canada and the United States for my kids' sports tournaments. And so I've got a lot of unique and different experiences with the cars. And so it tends to help when when people have questions, right? And so these type of chats are perfectly suited for some of the experiences I've had over the past few years. So.
Okay. Well, that's great. So as you can tell, we've got some experience here. I'm Tesla Canuck. I've got about 200 videos here on my YouTube channel. And yeah, I love Tesla, but I do believe in giving a balanced view. So sometimes I will be critical. So just to give you fair warning.
Nobody likes fanboys, Paul. So
yeah, exactly. Right. So, okay. Why don't we just do a couple of quick, comments that have come up here. We see Dave, he'd like to upgrade to a long range all-wheel drive Model 3. I'm assuming that you either have the SR Plus or the long range rear wheel drive, Dave. So yeah, that's we can talk about that too, because I've traded in two Teslas now for different Teslas. So I've got some experience doing that if you're interested and you have specific questions around it. And with the Kings here, let's see, just placed an order for an all-wheel drive long range, no delivery in my area, and hard to drive over gravelly past 180 miles to pick up in Portland. Oh, wow. Okay. So you've got a long way to go to do your pickup. So I mentioned here about poor paint. Okay. Maybe you can elaborate on that with the Kings. In the meantime, we'll kind of start with the questions, or it's not the questions. We'll start with kind of some commentary, and then we will get to the questions. So let me put this back up. So yeah, so first let's talk about the experience. And Kevin, it's been a couple of years since you've gone through the purchase experience. So I'll probably do a little bit of the talking here. I just recently, last November, we traded in our long range rear-wheel drive Model 3 for a all-wheel drive Model Y. And then just last month, we did another trade-in of our Model X for another Model Y. So I've got some recent experience. So after you place the order, there's a number of steps that you're going to have to do to complete the purchase and get things ready for delivery. And that's going to depend on whether or not you're leasing or getting a loan or purchasing outright. You're going to have to get things taken care of, like of trade, making sure your trade valuation is done, and that Tesla has come back to you with a trade-in value and you accept it. And then, of course, you're going to have to make sure that you make arrangements for your insurance. And those are kind of like the key things that you'll need to do. And then Tesla will be ready to give you a delivery date. So that's kind of the immediate past. You make your order. These are the things that you need to do. Many of you might already have gone through those steps, but we wanted to start kind of at the beginning where maybe you're just making a decision to buy, you haven't actually done it yet, or you literally just did it and you're wondering what comes next. So let's see here. We got a question here. Should you wait 30 days before getting paint correction and PPF? Kevin, you're the PPF guy. So I'm going to turn this one over to you.
So there's competing camps on this one. I am in the camp of no, do not wait. Maybe it's because I have bad luck, and if I waited 30 days, more than likely I'd have to get my stone chips fixed before getting the PPF on.
It's a good segue into with the Kings next. We'll put up his latest comment, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so when I took delivery of both my cars, I had my wheel guy and my PPF guy and my tinting guy all lined up. And so I had them done within, I would say, 48 hours, all of them done within 48 hours of me taking possession of the car, right? For different reasons, but I'm a firm believer in not waiting. And like I said, it's not, there's no scientific proof, I don't think, at least from what I've seen in the two different camps. Nothing hard scientific that I would say is it compelling enough to wait. So
yeah. And then if you're like me, you'll wait 3 years and then just not do it and trade your car in. I'm one of those people who just doesn't get PPF, but I understand the issue. I tend to trade in my cars after 3 or 4 years, and it's never been an issue for me, so I've never bothered to do it, but I do see the argument for it. So thank you for that, Kevin. We've got some clarification here on with the King's previous comments. So he's worried about the paint surviving the drive home. He's got a long distance, gravelly roads after he picks up his car. So, there was a period of time where the Tesla paint was a topic of conversation. I've not heard really much about paint issues probably in the last, 6 to 8 months. Kevin, I don't know if you have any comments about that in terms of what you've read or concerns.
No, I haven't. My personal experience with both my vehicles is the paint has been quite good. I did put, and look, if you're worried about it, I mean, what you could do is you could get the mud flaps. Tesla has mud flaps that they will provide to you, I think.
Oh, they can pre-install them, right?
Yeah,
for you, and then you could take them off if you didn't like them.
Or I got the color coded one, so I've got a white Model 3, and I have the white molded mud flaps, which do a really good job of keeping the snow and the gravel off the sides of the car. But even when I only put them on last winter, and even before, so I had 2 other winters before that, so it wasn't really an issue. And like I said, I put a lot of miles on my car, and so it hasn't been that big of an issue. But if you're concerned, I mean, throw some mud flaps on there. I think that will probably take care of the concern.
Yeah, and like even if in the short term, if they're the ones that Tesla has, right, sure. They might not look the best, but they'll get you home, and I'm sure Tesla would install them for you prior to your pickup if you're really concerned about that. Okay, we've got another comment here. Sasset Braun Road. I probably butchered that, and I'm really sorry. Is still in research mode on the Teslas, wants an X because of the space for 3 kids. You could certainly chime in on that, Kevin. Well, you got 2, but your kids are in sports and stuff like that. Her hubby is concerned about range, and they live in rural Saskatchewan. So, so is there anything about the X versus, let's say, I know the 3, and you know enough about the Y to comment as well. As a Model X owner, Kevin, and 3 kids, what advice would you give?
I adore my X. The space on it is insane. For Sasset, if your kids are in hockey, both my kids were in rep hockey, and I also had, you're always carpool with other families, and so we went all over Canada, United States, and I have the Model 3 75D, so the small battery, so very limited range. And I know rural Saskatchewan, a little concerned because you're in a rural area as opposed to sort of when we're driving through Canada and the US, there's superchargers everywhere. But the new Model X has close to 600 kilometers of range. I think the last number I saw was 580, which is well beyond the Model Y, even, which is around 525. So yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about the range. I know they just put in a whole bunch of V3 superchargers on the Trans-Canada Highway, so I'm not sure how far off you are from there. But I don't think it will be a problem. As for space, listen, we would regularly go to tournaments with 3 kids, 3 adults, 3 hockey bags, luggage, sticks. So you get, I have a 7-seater, so we get six people in there with hockey bags, one in the front, 2 in the back, sticks and luggage, no problem. Very comfortable. So the space is outrageous in the X. I love it. And like I said, range has never been a problem, even though I have the smallest battery of the X, if you're talking about the new ones, for sure.
Yep. All right. Hope that was helpful. Just a comment from Dave. He's asking if anyone has sold their Tesla privately. I don't know anyone who has, but if there's somebody in the chat that can help Dave, that would be appreciated. All right, let's take a look back at the, where is it? No, not that one. This one. Make sure that we cover all the things that we wanted to talk about. So plan where you will charge when at home. So a lot of people who are getting Teslas are going to have a garage at home or somewhere at home where they'll be able to install a charger and charge at home. We know that there are a lot of owners out there who live in condos who might not be able to do that. So let's start first with the home charging. And it's one of the things that you need to think through, because you want to, before you take delivery, you want to have whatever you're going to need installed in order to charge the car. So I have the Tesla wall chargers, and Kevin does as well. But prior to that, I know he had the NEMA 1450. So Kevin, do you want to talk about, since you went through that journey, why you started with the NEMA 1450 and then how you found yourself with the high-powered wall chargers? What are they calling them today?
Yeah, great topic. So a lot of people don't realize, so when you buy one Tesla, you sometimes end up with 2 because nobody wants to drive the gas car afterwards, which is exactly what happened.
That is true.
Right. And so one of the things you want to do is keep your options open. And a way to do that is, so in general, you can, if you don't have to replace your box, if you got enough room in your box, you can generally have a line put in to your box and run to your garage for about $500 Canadian. I don't know about the US, but I assume it can't be much more with a good electrician. What I didn't want to do was I thought I was only going to get one Tesla. And so I didn't want to spring $500 for the line and then another $600 for the wall charger, especially when the car already came with a mobile connector. So every Tesla comes with a mobile charge connector. And so what I did is I installed a NEMA 1450 plug. And so one of the things that the electrician told me was, hey, put it on a 60 amp breaker, because Teslas charge at a maximum of 48 amps. And the rule is 80% of whatever the breaker is, right? So you can get your full 48 amps if you go to a wall charger later on. But for now, the mobile connector is limited to 32 amps. And so but there's no problem putting a NEMA 1450 on a 60 amp charger, even though it says 50 amps on it, right? And that's exactly what happened, actually, is I got a second car, and then we had to upgrade the NEMA 1450 to 2 wall chargers. And if you know anything about the wall chargers, they can connect to each other and share a line, right? And so the 2 chargers share a 60 amp breaker, which means 48 amps in total at any one time. And so if I have one car truck plugged in, I get the full 48 amps. If I get 2 cars plugged in, they share 24 amps each, right? Which is still a really good charge rate, especially if you're plugged in at night. But going with the NEMA 1450 is a really, really, oh my God, $1,400.
Sorry, I had to put that up.
Yeah.
Stacy, I'm assuming that's for the Tesla wall charger, not the NEMA 1450. But yeah, the wall chargers can get pricey to install. That's about what I paid for mine. So
the install of the wall charger, the installation, or the actual charger?
That was like the installation and the charger cost me $1,400.
Oh, okay, together, right? Because the chargers are on $600, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it is fairly pricey to install. And then with the NEMA 1450, you have less upfront cost, right? But one of the things that we were talking about before the show was you were telling me that, and I never really noticed this because I never used it, was the NEMA 1450 adapter is not included. Is that correct?
So back when we bought our cars, Tesla
Yep.
used to include the adapter with the mobile connector for the NEMA 1450. It is no longer included with the mobile connector. You only get a 110 volt connector with the mobile connector, and so you actually have to buy it on the Tesla store if you want the NEMA 1450 adapter that comes with that used to come with the mobile connector, no longer does, which I find that a little bit disappointing, simply because I've used my 110 volt connector once on the mobile connector and never again, because it gives you virtually nothing, like 1.5% per hour. So you need to have
it's
for 5 days to get a full charge. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's an important point, because if you don't know, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're here watching, you've probably watched a lot of YouTube videos already, but just in case you don't know, the regular 110, and I guess it would be 220 in Europe or something like that, but it's not going to charge your car very fast. So it's called trickle charging, actually, because it's so slow. It's not going to be an option really if you're a commuter and you don't live near a supercharging station or something like that. So
James made a really good point. If you're getting a NEMA 1450 installed, don't tell them it's for a Tesla, because
then the price will go up, right?
Yeah, there's definitely some groups out there that or folks out there that will stoke you if they think you're buying a Tesla. That somehow they think you're made of money. Which I think is exactly the opposite. I think people who buy Teslas are actually way smarter with their money than most. But
yeah, but you know what, that might be the best advice of the show here is that don't tell people if you're getting a NEMA 1450 installed that it's for a Tesla, because the price will go up.
Stacy says that $1,400 was just for the installation. Stacy, run away. That's that person's call.
Yeah, exactly.
That is crazy. You can get a really good installer to do a NEMA 1450 installation for $500. I'm telling you.
I wanted to get to Jordan's question here, because we were going to talk about tint as one of the things that you might want to be thinking about prior to delivery. So I guess Jordan's saying, I've seen some owners say that they've had issues with their vehicles after getting it done, and Tesla says it avoids the warranty. So, I mean, tinting doesn't void the warranty to the best of my knowledge. No. And I know when like the full glass roofs, were first introduced with the Model 3, that there were a lot of tint shops that had problems doing installs. And I was one of them. I had a really bad, tint job on my Model 3. And recently, though, I've not heard so many issues with the tint jobs on the Teslas. I'm not sure if you have, Kevin.
No, I mean, I've never heard of tinting voiding the warranty. My sort of rule of thumb when it comes to tinting is, I found a guy who I know they do like probably 100 Teslas a month. So these guys, they know everything there is to know about a Tesla. So I like going to shops that have a lot of experience with my cars and are stand-up shops that will stand behind their work, and people that I trust have gone there and have had great experiences. I mean, having referrals is super important to me. Yeah. And so, it's no guarantee you won't have any issues. But the fact of the matter is, if you have issues, more than likely that if you go to a good shop, they'll stand behind their work and they'll make it right. And you won't need to deal with it on anything.
But
in regards to that. So.
As a standard kind of reply, I mean, nothing about the tint should mess with any of the sensors. Now, I know that with the B-pillar cameras, so those are the ones that are on the side of the vehicle, you wouldn't tint those. I mean, you can't tint those actually, so you don't have to worry about that. And I think Kevin's advice is good, where you want to make sure you go to a tint shop that has experience with Teslas. if you don't know in your area which shops have experience, usually there's a local Tesla group in just about every city, large or small. Try to find other owners nearby where you live and try to get a referral from somebody who's had a good experience. Because yeah, there are a lot of bad tint shops out there for sure, and there's a lot of great ones. Referrals are always your best bet.
And to Jordan's question, there's no sensors in the actual windows themselves.
Yeah.
There's only cameras in the B pillars, as you mentioned. You're not going to tint that. So, no. And you know what? There's specific tint out there. The Expel Ceramic is the ones I know that actually do a really good job of not interfering with the Wi-Fi connection within the car as well. So that's a lot of the Wi-Fi. If you get metallic tint, that does have some issues with regards to dimming down the wave connection, and you can tell because your cell phone won't get a good connection within the car. But stay away from the metallic tints.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. I don't want to spend too much time on the cold weather range loss. We did a whole show on that. You can check that out in my recent videos. But yeah, you're going to get range loss in the winter at minus 25 degrees Celsius. On a newer Tesla that has a heat pump, you're probably going to lose, depending on other variables like wind and elevation, these type of things, probably up to 40%, maybe a little bit more in minus 25 degrees Celsius. You can take some steps, though, to mitigate by preconditioning your vehicle. Kevin, you're the preconditioning guru, so I'm just gonna punt that preconditioning over to you.
I gotta tell you, I hate getting into a cold car, and so I will pre-warm using my app. I will wait 15 minutes if I have to, if I immediately have to leave. What happens is if the car is plugged in, the battery pack will warm itself way quicker, and you'll get a lot less range loss because the battery is using the wall plug to condition the batteries, and the batteries actually work a lot better when they're warm, right? And so you don't have as much internal resistance in the cold battery pack. And so the biggest thing you can do into mitigating range loss is to precondition the car and the battery. And you know what? If I have an option, I'll precondition for 45 minutes if I have to, just because I like the battery all the way warm and not just partially warmed. So,
okay. All right. Let's. We're going to get to Julio's question in a moment, but before we do that, I wanted to. I always press the wrong button. Let's see here. I'm like a noob with this software sometimes. Okay,
while you're looking, Paul, I just saw a note from Julio on his Model 3 performance with low profile tires. Worried about potholes? Yeah. You should be.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. Your potholes are bad for any tire, particularly bad for the low profiles, and there's not a whole lot you can do. So you either have to make a call that the potholes in your area are too bad for you to have low profile tires and go to a different type of rim, or risk it. Chances are that you hit a pothole big enough with a low profile tire, and it doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or not, you're going to have issues. So,
yeah, I mean, just a quick aside is we do have another friend from our Tesla circle who drove through, I think it was Michigan, Detroit. Yeah. Detroit, and ended up like having to have all his rims replaced or something like that. So I shouldn't be laughing, but definitely be careful with low profile tires if you in an area with a lot of potholes. Okay, let's talk about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, my son bent the two right side wheels on my Model 3 last summer, going through a construction site where there was a piece of concrete that was cut away and it had a 2-inch lip. It bent both my rims on the right side. So
yeah, and that's an expense you don't want. Trust us. We heard from our friend. HomeLink. Let's talk about HomeLink. A lot of people use it. If you don't know, it's that piece of tech in your car that allows you to open and close your garage door. With a Tesla, it comes with some other additional features like it'll automatically open and close your door for summon or other type of features that Tesla has. And HomeLink is no longer included. And I don't think it's included on any Tesla. I'm not sure about the refresh X and Y. I'm not sure if you've heard, Kevin, but on the Model 3 and Model Y, 100% HomeLink is not included. And in Canada, it's an option. It's a $400 Canadian option. So in US dollars, it's probably what, $10, $20? No. It's probably, I don't know, a couple $100 US. And what I'm doing with, I've got a Model Y that I'm picking up next Saturday, and I've asked them to just pre-install the HomeLink for me, and I'll pay for it.
Did they agree?
I actually haven't gotten a reply yet, but I did send them that message on Friday. So I'll follow up on it. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do that. So that's my strategy around it. Worst case scenario, you've got your little thing that you can clip to your visor and just go old school. All right. Dax says, have you guys heard if the no heat issue is fixed with the new 3Ys? I've heard about this issue. I've read about this issue. I've not experienced this issue. So apparently the heat is cutting out for some owners with the Model 3 and Y that have the heat pump. And yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this because it hasn't happened to me. So I haven't been super interested in it. Kevin, what have you read? Anything?
For what I've heard, it seems to have been resolved because I haven't specifically heard they fixed it, but I know they pushed out a couple of different updates, and I just haven't seen the same number of people complaining about it. Right?
Yeah, it seems to drop off the radar.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it is either fixed mostly or enough for people to stop complaining, or completely fixed. But yeah.
All right, let's talk about the.
Actually, Paul, I did just do a quick scan. The model for the HomeLink piece that you were talking about,
yes.
The Model S and the Model X does come with HomeLink standard.
Okay.
You don't have to pay for it. The Model 3 and
Yes.
the Model Y, you do have to have it added after the fact because it doesn't come from the factory. Just as a piece of information, last spring in April, someone tweeted to Elon to ask him, because some people have Wi-Fi enabled garage door openers and not HomeLink, and someone asked if they could include that in the code free of charge, basically, because they would use the car's internet connection and might incent them to buy the premium connectivity package. And so use the Wi-Fi in the car to access Wi-Fi enabled garage door openers. And Elon did confirm that that feature is coming. So, but that was last April 2020. So I saw a bunch of posts in August of last year as well, asking, hey, is this coming anytime soon? So, so it's confirmed it is a feature that will come eventually. As to when, I'm not sure. So if you're on the fence as to whether you want to keep using your physical remotes or take the plunge and buy the integrated HomeLink piece for the Model 3 or the Model Y, you might want to wait for a little bit just to see if you've got a Wi-Fi enabled garage door opener, just to wait and see if that's actually going to be coming, anytime soon, or is it going to be Tesla time?
All right. So let's get back to our agenda. Just quickly, there's a question about how good is HomeLink. It's excellent. I mean, I've had it in 2 of my Teslas, and it works flawlessly in my experience. Let's see here. Oh, I hit the right button this time. So the other thing before you pick up, you definitely want to understand what your charging options are while traveling. And the main one obviously is going to be your supercharging. Let's see, I might actually have something here that I can share so we can visualize. Let's see here. While I'm doing that, Kevin, do you just want to run through like what you'll typically see from destination chargers to superchargers to third-party type of stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, supercharging is pretty simple. I mean, you punch in where you want to go. The car figures out what supercharger you need to use and where and for how long. But in situations where there is, you're going to remote areas or there are no superchargers, you really have to look at third-party apps. And PlugShare is the app I always use. And you can filter for CHAdeMO or NEMA 1450 or destination chargers, right? The high power wall chargers. If you're looking for hotels and stuff, shopping malls that have chargers that you want to use. So, you know, that will get into. I think we're going to talk about other accessories like the CHAdeMO adapter, and I can actually. The CCS adapter. There's a third-party CCS adapter that's not very good yet, and it's supported by any of the Tesla software, but it could be an option in a short period of time. But for the most part, I mean, my advice, which is not really good advice, it's pretty obvious, is use a supercharger whenever possible, right?
Whenever possible, yeah.
And you know, there's various different apps out there that can help you. A better route planner is it's almost like a Google Maps type planner that allows you to integrate both superchargers and third-party chargers into your route plan, and you know, figure out whether you are going to have any issues that way and whether you're going to need those adapters like the CHAdeMO adapters or anything else that that won't be covered by the supercharger network.
Yeah.
So.
All right. This question came in, and we talked about mud flaps already, but just to answer the question, that, you know, Montreal, I mean, I can't recall if Montreal uses sand or salt, but it probably doesn't matter in the winter time. I mean, it's going to chip away, if you will, for lack of a better expression, of the paint. So mud flaps are definitely good for the winter to preserve the paint in around your wheel wells. There's no question about it. If you're happy with how they look, I'd say why not?
But even if you spend your time in Florida, you know, it's not just sand and salt, and for the snow, it's also, you know, dirt roads or semi-paved roads, and not sure how much time you spend on those, you know, driving down to Florida. But look, I think mud flaps are, especially when you get decent looking ones, they can only help, right? I haven't noticed. One of the things I was worried about with my mud flaps was range loss. I actually wondered if it would mess with the aerodynamics of the car. And to be honest with you, I've gone on lots of road trips with my Model 3 and not noticed much of anything with regards to range loss before and after the mud flaps. So, and I've got white integrated ones that match the color of my car. I actually think they look, it makes my car look more sporty. So, and lower to the ground.
Okay. The condo question, we kind of didn't cover that. We said we would. So, because you know, we do know some people in our circles who do live in a condo. One of them in particular lives near Toronto and actually charges at one of the supercharging locations at the Toronto Eaton Center, which has the urban charging units. So I think those are what, 70 kilowatt chargers?
72, yeah.
Yeah, 72. Okay. So yeah, so that's what he ended up doing. There's probably other options in terms of level 2, but it takes a lot of time, obviously. So for condo owners, yeah, that's going to continue to be a problem until there's a solution, and it's going to vary by your location, right? So some municipalities have already put bylaws in place where when the condos are developed, that, you know, it's part of the developer has to put in a capability to install charging, EV charging. So it's an issue. Thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are some solutions out there. Actually, there's a company in Quebec that developed a box that could connect to your hydrometer within a condo, as long as the condo board agreed to allow you to install it. It's about $1,000, and it would allow you to charge and have it metered on your condo. Those kind of solutions are great, but until there's an actual, I think, a law that allows homeowners to have the right to do those things, I'm not sure how much it's going to get picked up, right? So.
And then the second part of the question, not to rush you along, I'm conscious of of time a little bit, but So the other issue is with cellular connectivity down in a condo parking garage. And again, I mean, we know people who have this issue where sometimes there's connectivity and sometimes a software update will download. But sometimes you might have to come above ground, to do that. Kevin, are you aware if it's still you have to be connected to Wi-Fi versus the LTE to get a software update?
So it definitely is slower, meaning that you don't get the updates as quick if you're not connected to Wi-Fi, but you still get them, right? And so we have a guy in our group who is parked in an underground and not connected to Wi-Fi, and he's actually noticed over the last, I just saw him post something the other day. He's actually noticing over the last month or two a more regular cadence of updates coming from LTE, just the car's regular LTE.
Yeah,
and I
that's
don't,
pretty consistent.
I don't believe he has premium connectivity either, so I don't think that the update is an LTE update. It matters if you have premium connectivity. I think the only thing that premium connectivity affects is your entertainment systems, like your video games and your movie watching apps like Netflix and Twitch and all that stuff. So,
yeah. And then just while on the topic of premium connectivity, just because there's a question here, is when the free trial's over, you have the option of it being a paid subscription. I believe the cost in Canada is somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 per month. I'm not sure what it is in the US.
It's $10. $10.
Yeah, is it? Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's a monthly charge. You don't need it. To Kevin's earlier point, you can always tether your phone. If you have a phone with a good data plan, you can always tether your phone and access your features like your Spotify or that type of thing. So no, it's not really needed. It's really a convenience thing, but you can do without it.
Yeah, I do love it. I have to say I have it grandfathered on both cars, so I get it for free on both cars, and I love it.
It is convenient.
I really love it.
Yeah. Kevin, somebody wants your tire guy. So I'll let you kind of, when the video is posted, you can go back and you can put your tire person's information.
Yeah. I don't know, Julio, if you are in the Toronto area, but if you're in the Toronto area, I got a long list of stuff of people that I trust. So
you can just email me, the TeslaKevv@gmail.com. And I'll make sure that it gets to Kevin if you're in the Toronto area, and he can refer his tire guy. All right, let's kind of move along in the topics, just for the sake of time and getting through all the things that we wanted to talk about today. I've got to. How do I get rid of that? Okay, there we go. I think we've talked about most things for the what to do before delivery. So before we get to the after delivery, there's just one thing which I think is really important, is to have a checklist for delivery. If you do a Google search, Tesla checklist, people have created, there's dozens of them out there. You can take one of those and add to it. You don't have to start from scratch, but you want to double check to make sure things like, the paint is good, there isn't any damage, there isn't any interior damage, or, panel gaps that aren't satisfactory. Whatever it is that concerns you about whether or not you would refuse delivery, whatever those things might be, just make sure you have them documented and that you take the time at your delivery to don't be rushed. Do what you need to do to be comfortable about signing off on your vehicle.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's a ton of videos and a ton of folks out there that will tell you they had the worst experience ever, picking up their car. It had, a seat missing and no windows and no door handles, and like there's so much craziness out there.
It's missing the engine.
You open the front and there's no engine. there's definitely situations where people have had cars that were not perfect. I'm not dismissing that, but it does pay off really well to spend a little bit of time just going over the car and getting comfortable that there's nothing really crazy that you want a reason why you wouldn't take delivery, or make sure it gets documented that delivery that it needs to be fixed or needs to be repaired, right? You should take a little bit of time to go over the car with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that you're happy, right? And the things you're not happy about, you can let them know. And my experience is most of the time the Tesla will take care of you and make sure that it gets fixed sooner rather than later. Most of the time.
Yeah. So it is a good question about how much time do you actually have, and I think there's two parts to this. So one is if you're relying on Tesla's goodwill, right? And then legally what you might be entitled to in the jurisdiction where you live, right? I've heard of Tesla up to 2 weeks, looking at things that might have been delivery issues. And I do know that there are certain laws in certain jurisdictions which might give you a little bit more teeth in terms of protection around that. But the biggest advice, Jordan, I would give you is take the time. When you're there, it's been my experience that the Tesla delivery specialists do not rush you, right? They basically leave you to do whatever it is you need to do to feel comfortable about signing on your delivery. So take the time and have a list and go through everything. And that'll mitigate most of the issue. I mean, if you do miss something and you find it, I'm sure Tesla will take care of you if it's in a reasonable time span.
I just a situation I had with my Model 3. I had it for about 6 months, and the right side headlight had a small flicker. And so they sent a ranger to replace the whole headlight unit. And one of the things he noticed was that the air grill in the front wasn't installed properly in the factory. It was misaligned, and I hadn't even noticed it, to be honest with you. And he replaced the whole thing. He replaced the grill. And it took him a while too. It took him an hour and a half to replace the grill, and he did it complimentary. It wasn't on the invoice, and so he just did it because it was the right thing to do. I mean,
yeah, I mean that's been my experience too. Like you do read about, and there's some YouTube videos out there where people seem to have had a different experience, but I know a lot of people with Teslas. This is going to be our 4th Tesla, the one we're picking up next week. And it's been my experience that the service centers do the right thing and treat you quite well. So not to say that people haven't had a different experience, but I think for the most part, they're honest and want to do the right thing. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about the things that you're going to do immediately after delivery when you bring it home and now it's sitting in your driveway or in your condo parking deck or wherever it is. So let's just start talking about these and see where the questions lead us. So the first one is about practicing using your NFC credit card style key. Most people are going to end up just using their Bluetooth phone key, which we'll get to in a moment. But it's very important that you know how to use the NFC key, because if for whatever reason your phone runs out of juice, whatever, you don't have your Bluetooth key, you need to know how to open the door, start the car, this type of thing. Kevin, I'll throw this one over to you to go over the how to use that NFC card. And while you're doing that, I think I have a picture.
Yeah, the funny thing is, most people, mention to me how freaked out they are about the fact that there's no actual physical key for the car. And one of the things I told them when I showed them my credit card is I'm like, you use this to set up your phone and set up, your wife's phone or in my case, my son's phone. And once you get it set up, you kind of don't use the card anymore. Like it goes in your wallet, and it stays there. And, I've had my Model 3 now for 3 years, and I might have pulled it out of my wallet maybe twice or 3 times. It's meant to be not your everyday way to use the car. It's meant to be sort of a backup if, your phone dies or, something happens to your phone, it gets run over, or you don't have it, or it gets stolen, whatever. I reassure people by saying, you know what, it's not as freaky or as out there as you think it is, because you kind of don't use it, right? It's great. It's a great way of setting things up. But once everything is set up in motion, you kind of don't, you put it in your wallet, and that's kind of where it stays until you need it for some other either setup or emergency type situation. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to put up another picture here that has a view of the car, and the card reader, just so that people know, especially during COVID, I know that some of the delivery experiences, not everything gets touched on because it's a little bit different nowadays. But in the B pillar, which is in the center between the passenger front and rear here in the picture, it's called the B pillar, and just underneath the camera is where you would hold the card to unlock the door. And then when you're on the inside to start it, in your center console, you're going to place the card just behind where the cup holders are, and you're just going to leave the card there, and you'll be able to begin driving away. I won't say start up, because there's no startup really. It's always on. But yeah, in case you ever needed to use your NFC card, it's very easy. I would recommend just practicing it a few times so that you know how to use it in case of an emergency. You're not wondering how to do it.
Stacy's asking what happens if you lose the key. So the short answer is right away, nothing. and the reason for that is because if you've already set up your phones as keys, those will continue to function. It's not like it needs to be tied to that key card. I would say you probably should get it replaced, because you don't know who's got that key, and whether or not they can basically use it to steal the car like any other. Yeah. Right. So you should get it replaced, but will it impact you right now from driving your car? The answer is no. Right.
And then the other thing,
yeah.
The other thing that if you do lose your key, you are able to, since I'm assuming you also have your Bluetooth key, you're able to get in your car. As long as you're able to get in your car, there's a in the menu, there is a I forget what it's called, but basically it's your smart keys or whatever, and you can actually delete the key that you lost, just so you don't have to worry about somebody coming and stealing your car. All right, so that's what happens if you lose the key. While we have this picture up of this is my old Model 3 that I traded in at a Supercharger. I want to say this is in Huntsville.
I was going to say, I think it's Huntsville. I recognize it.
Yeah. So Supercharging is on our list to talk about, because I know a lot of new owners that weren't sure what that experience was going to be like, and I usually try to reassure them about how easy it is to supercharge. And basically, you back up the car. You're going to take the nozzle, for lack of a better term, out of the supercharger, and you hold the button on the nozzle near where your charging hatch is on the back, and it'll open up, and you just plug it in with a little bit of force, right, to just get that in there. And it's literally that simple to do. And but the first time I understand, because I was like that as well, because I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I can say that you never forget your first time. Well, your first time at a supercharger, I'm talking about here, because you realize that it's no big deal, and it's just as easy, if not easier, than putting a gas pump in a fuel tank. Any additional comments around that, Kevin?
Yeah, it's just the supercharger reads your account. Your card is if you have to pay for your supercharging, it debits your card automatically. It knows where your account is. Again, both my cars are grandfathered, so I've grandfathered supercharging on my Model X. And my Model 3, I don't pay, just because I've got a lot of referral miles that I'm never ever going to use, because I only use my supercharging for trips, really. I mean, I'm either plugging in at work or at home for the bulk of my charging, and that's honestly, it's pennies a day, so it really is quite inexpensive.
Before we get on to the next topic, there's a question here from PS Gadgets. Thanks for joining again. I see your name on all of our live streams. It's really appreciated. So how long does the Model Y battery last? I guess he's experiencing some issues, lives in a condo, and has to go every 2-3 days to a supercharger. So there's a few things that might be affecting it. So one is Sentry mode. Sentry mode, if you're using that, it does take a lot of energy and you will have to charge more frequently. But in the normal course, assuming that you're parking in condos underground, it's probably not as cold as being out on the street. You should be able to go, what, Kevin, like 7-10 days pretty easy without Sentry mode?
Well, yeah, like if it just sitting there, right? You mean just not driving it? Yeah. You shouldn't be experiencing huge battery loss. On average, I think battery loss is probably 1% to 2% a day. If you're not running Sentry mode or anything else like that, it's not very much. If you're charging every 2-3 days because you're driving it, well, it's going to then depend on, how far you're driving style, how cold is it outside, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But 2 to 3 days just sitting there, I would say you'd probably lose max, 10% in 2 to 3 days, right? So
yeah. And he says it's outside. So even at that, I mean, minus 20, whatever, it's still not going to deplete your battery in 2-3 days unless you're using Sentry mode, in my experience.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we have another question here. What do you guys try to keep your battery percentage between? I see most people try to stay between 20 and 80%. That's generally what I do.
I go
for long trips, I'll charge it more.
Yeah, I go to 90 for my Model X, just because I find I have the 75D, so I have a smaller battery pack on my X, so I go to 90 on the X. I keep my 3 at 80. But Elon's been on record. He's gone on record a number of times of saying, 90, 95%, it doesn't matter. I think because they built enough buffer into the battery itself, I don't think, from a longevity perspective or a degradation perspective, I don't think it actually matters anything below 90. And if you believe Elon, 95%. So,
yeah. Okay. Another thing to expect if you purchased full self-driving, and I guess it would be the same with autopilot too as well. It would have the autopilot camera calibration, right, Kevin? So it doesn't matter if you bought FSD or not. Regular autopilot will also do this calibration process. Yeah. And in my experience, that's generally about 60 kilometers, 35 miles of driving, and the cameras just need to calibrate. So you won't be able to use those features as you're driving off of the Tesla lot.
Yeah. That was the first time I picked up my Tesla. I was most disappointed by the fact that I had to wait for this.
That's the first thing you want to try, right?
Yeah, it was the first thing I wanted to try, and I had to wait for the system to calibrate itself. Luckily for me, I had quite the drive home, so it calibrated itself in probably like 15-20 minutes, and then I was good after that. But it does take a little bit of a distance to calibrate in the beginning.
So the point here is that there's nothing wrong with your Tesla. This is a total normal process where the cameras have to calibrate. Nobody really tells you though, so I wanted to make sure that we brought that up here. Well, let's talk about full self-driving and some of these advanced features like summon and the ability to go on the freeway and it'll do the exits for you and all this kind of stuff. And the advice that I usually give to new owners is to take the time to practice these features when it's not super busy, like on a Sunday or something like that. So the first time you're using it isn't during rush hour, just so you can become familiar with the features and how they work. What do you think about that guidance, Kevin?
It's great. I would sort of expand on two things. One is pay attention when you're using your autopilot. pay attention. And the reason I say that is because it's not perfect, and don't expect it to be perfect. But what I've found is that there are areas, because things change, either construction has changed something or a line has been realigned, and the knowledge that the car is using is incorrect or wrong. And so you'll see situations where on the 400, my friend tells me all the time, there's a section of the 400 where they've changed the speed limits a bunch of times due to construction, and that's really messed up his autopilot. His car will brake hard at certain places on the 400 series highway because the speed that's in the Tesla computer is not aligned with what the reality is. And so one of the things that you should do if you come across situations where the car doesn't handle things well is push your voice button and say bug report. And what will happen is whatever just happened will get upload from a log perspective, will get uploaded and sent to Tesla, and it'll get fixed. Maybe not tomorrow or the next day, but they do have a system of being able to look at the bug report stuff and work on it fairly quickly, right? So, so if you come across anything that doesn't work, make sure you report it, right? Because the only way they know how to fix it is if we report it. So,
yeah, and they've made it dead easy with the voice command to do that. And this is, one of those features that most people don't know about as they're driving off the lot, about being able to do this bug reporting. So I'm glad you raised that. We've got an interesting comment here about one of my favorite topics, which is Bitcoin. So the question is, with Tesla making so much off their Bitcoin investment, do you see the price of the cars coming down as a possibility? So I think the prices of the cars are going to come down regardless of Bitcoin and what they've done, because that's been Elon's mission. His entire mission has been about democratizing electric vehicles so that they're affordable to the mass market. So that's going to happen regardless of what happens with the Bitcoin investment. But the Bitcoin investment is interesting. Kevin?
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't think the investments are going to drive the price of the vehicles. If anything, extra cash flow might help them build out their infrastructure. Maybe they accelerate the supercharging.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they use additional money to build out factories quicker. But I think they tie the price of the vehicle to the margins of the technology employed to build the car, right? So the price of batteries and the price of die press clamping, manufacturing techniques and those type of things, I think that will directly affect price of the cars. I don't see the sort of their success or failure in investments driving the price of the car, although it is a good thought.
Yeah, I mean, it would also depend, like, it's just on paper until you realize it anyways, right? But that being said, if Tesla allegedly at this point in time has made over $1 billion with their Bitcoin investment, so if you did realize those gains, you could build a gigafactory essentially for free.
Yeah,
and that probably would help them achieve their end goal of democratizing the electric vehicle, right? So yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. I like talking about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin and Tesla, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Got another question here from Jordan. She's wondering how safe is Summon to really use in a parking lot somewhere? And what happens if there's a problem? Does Tesla cover the cost if something happens? So no, Tesla will not cover the cost of something that happens. It would be either you personally or your insurance provider. So, but that being said, it's generally safe to use if you're using it responsibly. Like I wouldn't use it at like Costco, on a Saturday morning.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. This is one of those questions of common sense, right? It's as safe as you are going to be with it, right? So to Paul's point, if there's a place where you've got cars all over the place and people in buggies and stuff, it's unlikely the car will hit anything because it's designed not to hit anything. But there's nothing to say that no one's going to hit you, right? Whether it be buggies or other cars or whatnot. So Yeah, it's about as safe as you want it to be, right? And using good judgment goes a long way in that, right? And definitely you're in control of the car still, even when you're summering it. So it's all on you. If a car gets in an accident, whether it's the car's fault or not, you're still involved and as if you were behind the wheel.
This next question, I wanted to put this one up because it actually wasn't on our list, and it's a really good one, which is that you want to make sure that if your Tesla doesn't come with the stick pre-installed, which I think all the Teslas now are, right? I think, well,
no, not the
I guess I don't really know, but it's coming, right?
Yeah.
There'll be a day when your delivery includes this USB key pre-installed.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, like when we picked up our Model Y in November, I brought a USB key with me so that when I drove off the lot, so to speak, my TeslaKevv was fully functional. So what you would want to do if you know that you're not going to get one with the vehicle, right, is to take a USB stick, format it. There's instructions online, but basically you need to create a directory called TeslaKevv, and it has to be formatted, I think, in FAT32 or some format like that. I'll see if I can find a link and I'll drop it in when this video gets posted, just so you guys have it. But it's not a big deal. It's easy to do. You can do it on a Mac. You can do it on a PC. You can even do it on a Chromebook to format it properly so that when you go to pick it up, you put it in the USB port and you'll see a little red light in your, it looks like, the icon looks like a camera, and you'll see a little red light, a little dot on it, and that means it's working.
Yeah, just an update, Paul. I ran into this a little while ago. They pushed out an update. I don't know when. I think it was last September, I think, or last October. And now it doesn't need to be FAT32 anymore. So
okay, that's great, because it's been a long time since I've had to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that you can actually format it from the vehicle now.
You
right?
can. Yes.
So you put it in, and okay. So it's way better than it was for us early adopters. Getting your TeslaKevv to work was sometimes a little bit of art and science, I guess, right? But yeah, so now it's a lot better. There's just, you can format it right from the vehicle. I forgot about that.
And for Colin, the reports on the memory sticks that are being supplied I've seen nothing but good things.
Yeah, they're Samsung, right? Yeah. They're very good quality.
Stacy's asking, how much storage would you recommend? This is a sore spot for me, Stacy.
Yeah, so it used to be that it would just store everything, and then once you're out of space, it would just start deleting and overwriting. And then now it seems, Kevin, I think it's only recording your last hour of travel, unless you honk the horn or press the camera to save the footage. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm really upset about this because I spent some money to buy a portable solid state drive, 256 gig solid state drive, which I plugged in and to my car. And they've recently made a change in the logic, so it no longer records everything the way it used to. It now only records your last drive. Or if you hit the button while you're driving, it'll put that clip into saved clips. Or if you honk the horn, and you have the setting enabled that save clip on honk, it'll put it in your saved clips. But so you now have to tell it when you want it to save by either pushing the button or honking. Or other than that, it'll only save your last trip. So So basically, having a 256 gig solid state drive is now a waste because I've only got one clip on there at any one time. So I'm hoping that they give us an option to change that setting at some point. So I'm still optimistic that we'll, and that's the beauty of a Tesla, right? If they hear enough noise on something, they'll fix it. And so hopefully, I'm not the only one who's upset about this.
I'm sure they'll bring back some advanced features for people like you, Kevin.
Yeah.
We got a question here about, is it possible, reasonable to use Summon to automatically back into your garage each time you return home? I've tried this a couple of times, and I'd say the answer right now is no, at least for me. I can't automatically park my car in my garage. It's too tight.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it depends on how tight it is. Mine's too tight as well. I can't. It'll only go as close to, even on the tightest settings. It needs a foot in front of the car, like 12 inches. And I park, to get my car in, I got to get to within 3 or 4 inches of the wall. So it doesn't work for me because it's too tight. So, but if you have room, I assume it would work very well, actually.
Yeah. I'm sure like a 64 gigabyte would probably be fine at this point in time, given how it works today. Oops. No, that's not the one. There's another YouTube channel that shows Sentry mode and accident clips caught on Teslas while driving. Yeah, I've seen a few of these. Yeah, they're really entertaining. If you could find a good one, I'll have to check this one out. I think I've seen this one. So you can't believe what the TeslaKevv captures. Actually,
it is. I would say the Wham Bam TeslaKevv one is one of the better ones out there. And the commentator, he does a really good job of sort of making the clip funny too. So, but yeah, you can't believe some of the stuff you'll see on this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just to recap where we are, we finished the pre-delivery stuff. We're talking about what to expect after delivery. We just had a great conversation about the TeslaKevv and Summon and some other great stuff. We talked about the supercharging experience. So let's move on to talk about range. And I thought it was important, even though we did an entire show on this, Kevin, to talk about range anxiety and why range anxiety probably isn't as big of an issue as it was back 4 years ago, like when you and I got our first Teslas. So first off, I mean, the newer Teslas today have a lot more range. Even the short range, Model 3, I believe, is over 400 kilometers of range. And the only time range is really something that you kind of have to think about is in the wintertime when it's extremely cold. And just knowing on your journey, if you're going on a trip, where the superchargers are or your charging options are, should you need them. But for daily commutes, for example, I really don't think there's such a thing as range anxiety anymore. I mean, most people live close enough to where they work that they're not going to come close to using up all the range, even in the winter. Kevin, I know you feel passionately about this one as well.
Yeah, I would say there's really only two scenarios where it becomes an issue, and one is actually maybe a third. I'll add a third one at the end. But really, it's if you're on a trip, right? Because that certainly you have to plan out. Just like a gas car, you have to plan out where you're going to stop for fuel, right? And so for those people who are on trips, which is maybe 1% of all your driving, so 99% of the time, no. If you're in a really rural area and basically your house is your only charging option, and depending on how far your commute is, maybe that's an issue. If it's really cold or something, I'm not really rural. I would see maybe sometimes being out in a rural area and you got to drive a lot of miles every day. That might be an issue. And then the third is where you don't have access to regular charging, like some of our friends here who have condos, right? And they have to rely on supercharging. I wouldn't call that range anxiety. I would call that charge envy or something. But those are really the only time I think that charging ever comes to the forefront of your mind. I remember when I first got the cars, I used to sort of think about it a lot. And then I realized one day, why am I thinking about it? It's never ever a thing. And so,
yeah.
It's just not a thing, right? For 99% of the time I'm driving the car, it's just not an issue.
Yeah. It's really become a perception thing, almost an historical thing as it relates to electric vehicles. And even if you're talking about the newer ones that are coming out from some of the traditional manufacturers, like the Mach-E from Ford, I mean, right now, I mean, it doesn't really seem like range anxiety is going to live on as something that people will be concerned about. I believe that time is today. right? But certainly in the future too, as range keeps increasing and the charging options keep increasing, it's just one day you'll look back on it and say, oh, there's a thing called range anxiety one day. Remember that?
Right? I do think they're probably without the supercharging network, it might be more of a thing, meaning that if you have a non-Tesla, you probably have a lot less comfort than if you had a Tesla, because in the States they have really big networks like Electrify America, and which is investing a ton of money in building out the charging infrastructure. But in other countries, we have Electrify Canada, but they're just they're nowhere. They've got a couple of stations here, there, and everywhere, right? So, so I would say, depending on where you live, that may or may not be a thing if you own a non-Tesla. So,
yeah. And I'm not going to say last, because we are going to hang around and answer more questions, because that's what we love to do. We like to help people and answer their questions about their upcoming Tesla experience. But I did want to mention that after your delivery, and you can even start this before your delivery, is to get involved with the local Tesla community in your area. One of the things that I love about driving a Tesla is that there's almost like a camaraderie, if you will, with your fellow Tesla owners. And you'll see that when you go to a supercharger, for example. Sometimes people will, sit in their car, and sometimes people, are not, wanting to chat or that type of thing. And sometimes I don't want to chat either. But most of the time, I'm telling you, like it especially in the summertime, it becomes like a social gathering, and it's really cool. And there are groups just about in every location that will arrange Tesla outings, right? So you go with a bunch of Tesla owners on a drive somewhere. So I'd encourage people to find out about what's going on in their local community with Tesla, and just enjoy that type of ownership experience with other people. Kevin, how do you feel about that? And has your experience been the same as mine, where it's like really cool?
Yeah, it's beyond anything I've ever seen before, to be honest with you. The level of support that most people are interested in giving you, especially on these forums, is it's like nothing. Honestly, it's like nothing else out there. People genuinely want a better world, and they want to get rid of gas cars. And so if you run into trouble, or if you have a question, there is no shortage of people in these forums that will bend over backwards, literally, to help you find an answer, right? It's just I've had people reach out to me that I've met at superchargers, and you trade email addresses, and they've done the same, and it's kind of this pay it forward kind of thing. It's a really fun group to be part of for the last few years, anyway. So,
yeah, I mean, totally. It's been one of the biggest. I hesitate to call it a surprise, but almost like a perk of ownership, where you just have a group of people that are just so friendly and so willing to, I don't know, some people I know just give you their shirt off their back. They're those kind of people, right? So anyhow, the other thing too about delivery today that I want to mention, because we're still kind of in the throes of COVID-19, most of the world, is that your delivery experience is going to be a little bit different. Tesla's offering a no-touch delivery experience. I went through that last November, and it generally was no touch. So the documentation was inside the vehicle, and you really didn't spend time with another person. The Tesla delivery specialist would go away. You would spend time in your car. You would do your checklist. You would sign the papers when you were happy, or if you had questions, you would summon the Tesla delivery specialist back at a distance and have a conversation. So the picture I'm throwing up here on the screen, this is what it normally is like, where it's actually like a really fun experience, and Tesla makes it fun. And hopefully one day we'll see this again, because you can see like how thrilled I was with my Model 3 delivery here. So that could be you people.
My Model 3 delivery was a little different. It was at the convention center out by the airport in Toronto, and I was supposed to take delivery at 8:00 in the morning, and there were so many people that were taking delivery that day. I actually didn't get mine until 5 p.m. that day. However, what they did ask me to do was, because I owned a Tesla Model X and I was an existing Tesla owner, would I mind running orientation sessions for owners who were waiting while I was waiting for my car? And so basically I basically worked for Tesla for that day, and I ran orientation sessions around their car after they showed the video of various different things. So although I spent the day there and that I didn't expect, it actually was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. All right, so what we're going to do now is we've kind of worked through our agenda, but this time is for you, and we're going to stick around and we're going to answer questions if you have them. So don't hesitate to throw some questions our way. In the meantime, let's talk about Ian's question here about an outdoor cover blanket. I don't use one. Not sure if you have any opinions on this, Kevin.
So I think you and I both park in the garage, though, right? So
yes,
I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, Ian, and if I had to park outside, so so I think it's a nice to have. I don't think it's a need to have. But when my wife, she goes to work and parks outside all day, I have her car automatically set 45 minutes before she leaves her work to precondition. And so what that means is if there's snow on the car, more than likely 45 minutes is enough time to melt everything that's off on, at least on the roof and on the windshields. And so if anything, she just has to take a snow brush and brush it off the hood because it won't melt it there. But I tend to like to melt the snow off my car as opposed to actually do physical work. And
that's kind of unique to, I mean, you can do it with an ICE, like, internal combustion engine vehicle, right? But that really pollutes, it throws noxious gases into the atmosphere. The really cool thing about the EV is that you don't have to clear that snow yourself if you can precondition, preheat, and it'll just melt it all away. So I think that's a really great point and a big difference about what might change if this is your first EV, your Tesla. So I'm with Kevin. I don't clear the snow off my car when I'm out and about and there's a snowstorm or something. Just All right. Hope that answered your question. Let me just glance at the questions here. So let's see.
Daniel's question is very interesting about the.
Okay.
So yeah, that one. Yeah, you're out of luck, my friend.
So I'm just going to read it for people who might be listening versus watching. So so Daniel's question: pre-ordered the rear-wheel drive long-range Model Y, but it still hasn't gone into production. Any theories as to when Tesla will start making that variant? Thanks for the great stream. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that feedback. You know what? This one, last I heard is that it was
not happening.
I don't think people are optimistic that it's going to happen.
No.
Right. And yeah, I mean, they ended up with the Model 3, right? They killed the long range rear wheel drive. And I think it's an economics thing, right? In terms of where Tesla can drive its profit and how much profit it can drive. And I think the rear wheel drive long range is not economically a priority for them. Right.
Yeah, I can add to that. Yeah. So Daniel, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's I'm pretty sure it's not happening. And the reason I say that is that I've seen a number of emails go out from Tesla to reservation holders on this, saying that they're not making this variant. And so but one of the perks is that if you locked in full self-driving cost at the time you did the reservation, they will honor that price, that full self-driving price, for a all-wheel drive long range, and that's what they're offering a lot of the reservation holders. So.
I wanted to put Mark's question up here because I think it's a good one, because people might not realize that today the supercharger, at least here in Ontario, and I think most parts of Canada, if memory serves me correct, is not based on the actual kilowatt hours of energy that you charge, but it's based on a flat kind of cost system. It's X price over a certain speed and X price below a certain speed. You've done a lot more supercharging than me, Kevin. So do you want to talk about that and what your thoughts are here?
Yeah. So this irritates.
I knew it would.
Yeah. And so I did a fair bit of research on it. And what I found was the reason they do it this way is because there's a government rule. There's an actual rule, a law in place that says in order for you to charge by the kilowatt, which would be a more efficient way of doing it, like just like at your house, like 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour. They can't, because only regulated energy distributors can charge electricity like that. And so in order for Tesla to be able to charge or pass along that charging structure to its customers, it would have to become a regulated energy distributor, a licensed energy distributor for Ontario. And I'm pretty sure even if they wanted to, the government of Ontario wouldn't allow it. So that's the reason why it's set up that way, because the law makes it so. So unless the government has interest in changing that.
It's an archaic law, right? And I think there's other provinces, perhaps some states, that have the same type of law. It just needs to become a priority, I think, in terms of passing new legislation to allow this to happen. Here's a question from Aaron, who's thinking about trading in his ICE vehicle for a Tesla. Any comments on the process? I think both of us, Kevin, have had experience trading in an ICE vehicle. I'll start first with, from a trade-in perspective, I don't think that Tesla gives best dollar for ICE vehicles. They give much better. They'll give much better trade-in values for Teslas than they will ICE vehicles. So you may want to consider other options, like a private sale if you have an ICE vehicle, or if you're not underwater and you're okay with the quote that that Tesla gives you. That's the decision that you'll probably need to make as to whether it's fair enough for you. Kevin?
Yeah, it's so the problem with trading an ICE vehicle in for Tesla is they outsource. It's a third party, so it's not Tesla that's giving you that trade-in value. It's a third party, and so they have no control actually over the value for an ICE vehicle, and the company they use has to make a profit on reselling that car. So there's really not much they can do, and so that's what some people have a hard time with that, because they're like, I'm going to negotiate a better price, and Tesla's just like, sorry, it's not even us. We provide the specs to the third party. They provide a quote back. So I think you're right, Paul. You've got to look at whether or not you get a better price selling it privately without the tax rebate that you get from trading it in, versus what the third party is giving Tesla. So, yeah.
I wanted to put this comment up from Darren at Drive Tesla Canada. Check out Drive Tesla Canada if you haven't and you're in Canada. It's a great source for Tesla news all over the world, but particularly if you want a Canadian slant, it's a really great destination. So Darren's saying that Measurement Canada has announced that they'll be transitioning to per kilowatt hour billing over the next 18 months. I didn't know that, so thank you for sharing, Darren. I appreciate that. Let's see. So Jordan, was that an ICE vehicle? I assume it was.
Whoa. Drive Tesla Canada. Sorry, I'm just looking at something in the comments. Drive Tesla Canada said that the Model Y standard range has been has been killed off. And
I think that was just recent, right? That's just like a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Let me just put that comment up here.
I had not heard that actually. I just the article I just looked at is only 5 hours old. So
yeah, so that's interesting, eh? Like
that is an epic flip flop.
Because they just started selling it.
And then, first they said they weren't going to do it because Elon said it didn't have enough range, and then they sold it, and they lowered the price on it a couple of days ago as well. It dropped by $3,000.
Yeah.
And now,
it's very odd, but I mean, Elon marches to the beat of his own drummer, as we know, and you'll see decisions like this happen, and it actually brings up another topic that wasn't on our list that I think is important, because a lot of the times, because Tesla doesn't have a defined model year, so my 2021 might not have the same features as my neighbor's 2021. And that's just the way Tesla rolls. When it improves something, it rolls it out to its vehicle. It doesn't wait a year to do that. And that can be good or bad. And when it's bad is if you miss this new feature by like a couple of days or something. So it's very unique to Tesla in terms of hardware changes mid-model year. And what I usually tell people is that if you're waiting for something that is rumored to come out, you might be always waiting, because there's always going to be something new that's going to come out mid-model year, or even any time during the model year, and you could miss out. So on my wife's Model Y from November, we missed out on the heated steering wheel, right? And this is, I love Tesla and I hate Tesla. If you're impacted by this, it might be not such a great experience, but for the most part, how can I put this? The value that you're going to get and the excitement you're going to feel about the car isn't really going to be any different whether you just miss something or not. And that's how I rationalize it. But I did want to make sure we covered that, because I know some people are interested in that topic.
So I want to go back to Daniel's question, where he's like, when he asked about the long range Model Y, the rear wheel drive long range Model Y, and he's like, it hasn't gone into production. Any theories as to when Tesla will start making that variant? Daniel, very soon. I know I just told you a whole different story, but I reserve the right to flip flop just like Elon.
But yet that's how things happen, right? So, all right. So we have a question here from Shelley. Is there a chance that the heated steering wheel will come via an update? And I'm not sure if Darren is still watching and if he can comment, because I know at one point in time, Darren from Drive Tesla Canada was saying that the 2021s that didn't ship with it might be enabled by a software update. I don't know if that's something that maybe, Darren, you still think that's going to happen. I personally think it's not going to happen. And for Shelley, the option will be, hopefully, if you really, really want it, that you can replace the steering wheel, and hopefully the wiring is there for it. Yeah. So, but that's a really great example of sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Okay, another question from Ian. If I precondition my Model 3 in the morning at the lowest tier time, so before 7 a.m., that might differ based on where you live. How long will the cabin battery stay warm? Obviously dependent upon ambient temperature. Kevin, preconditioning, I punt those to you.
So it depends. So I think Ian said he's not in a garage, right? So that's why he was looking at the cover. That one's tough. It will obviously depend on how cold it is outside, and stuff like wind and all kinds of stuff. I would say you're probably safe 30 minutes. Probably the battery pack will actually stay warm longer than the cabin, I think, because that's just the nature. It takes longer to heat up, but it stays warmer longer. I would say probably half an hour is for the most part, unless it's like -20 or -25 out there. it'll get cold pretty fast. But I would say 30 minutes is probably a fair number.
And the other thing too that that a lot of people don't realize is that and this is why the energy consumption and when it's cold and it's just sitting around happens more so than in the summertime, because the Tesla battery management system will keep the battery at a certain temperature. I want to say it's around 6 degrees Celsius, where the Tesla will start using energy from the battery pack to keep itself warm. Does that make sense, Kevin? Or did I get that right?
No, you got it right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
One thing I actually just thought of, I should mention to Ian, is the most energy consumption when you precondition starts when the thing is dead cold, right? And so if you've got to leave at say 9 o'clock, right, and you want to precondition before before 7, because when the electricity rates go up, you might want to start a few minutes before the end of the cycle, because that's when the electricity is cheapest, and that's when you're going to use the most of it. But once the car gets up to temperature, keeping it at temperature uses very little energy, actually only 1 or 2 amps. So who cares? Even if it goes from 12 cents to 21 cents per kilowatt hour, it's only gonna be a few cents more to run it for an hour once it's already reached its stable temperature. So I don't know if that makes sense, Ian, but I would try to sort of time it that way, so that it's dead cold during the best price time, and then it's just maintaining during the higher price time if you can't get those times to line up between the end of low price pricing and the time you have to leave, if that makes sense.
Okay, let's throw it out there for any further questions. If not, we'll do a trial close here. But if there are more questions, we're here to answer them. So start typing.
There's a question there about the Model 2. When is the Model 2?
Yeah, I saw. Okay, let me pull that one up. Yeah, that's I do think this is gonna happen. I don't know if you have any more news around it, but I'm sure it's inevitable.
I think it's going to happen quicker than people think.
This is the so-called 25,000 US or less.
Well, now that Biden in the US has implemented the $7,500 tax credit for all electric vehicles, it'll bring it down. They're now calling it the $19,000.
Oh my God! Think about that, eh?
Like
that's
crazy.
That's really, really amazing. I mean, the EV adoption tipping point, right? Yeah. Some would argue that we're already here, right, at that tipping point, and this is just going to be icing on the cake. I'm super excited about it because I'm on the fence, a side of the fence that says, all EVs are good, because I want to see EVs replace the fossil fuel cars, right? And having a $19,000 Tesla, I think, is going to just accelerate things like we've never seen, right?
I think you'll see the Model 2 though come out of the Chinese factory, so you'll see it in China first.
Or the Model 2, you mean? Yeah, for sure. I mean, they'll probably keep the cost as low as possible to get to that price point. So. Let's see here. Any other questions?
There's Julio, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, PPF versus wrap.
Yeah, they're the same thing, Julio. PPF generally is a protective film that's clear most of the time, that prevents stone chips. I'm a huge advocate. It works so well. I don't have a single stone chip on either one of my cars after all the miles we've driven it in all the years. Wrap can be a different thing. So wrap, it could be PPF, or it could be a wrap to change the color of your car, right? And so this is really big in China now, and in a bunch of places where you want something that's not offered by the factory. So PPF can be just as expensive as a wrap if you do the whole car, or you can pick and choose. So I do the full frontals, which is, the front of the car up to the back of the fenders, the front fenders, and the backs of the mirrors. And depending on where you live, you can get, that can be anywhere from $1,000 US to, $1,500 Canadian or $2,000 Canadian, depending on the type of wrap you use and the shop that you use, various different things. But a full wrap on a car, $4,000 or $5,000 easy, and could be higher depending on what you get. So,
and you don't want to cheap out at a shop that doesn't have a good reputation. So,
no.
It's got another question here. Someone has the 2020 Model Y long range with FSD, very, very low mileage, who wants the center console and heated steering wheel. How much will it cost with tax to trade in? That's a really good question. I mean, what I would recommend is if you do a quick Google search on Tesla trade-in. So depending on where you live, you'll get a link, and you can go to that link and you can request a trade-in estimate, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's really quick. Sometimes they get back to you like within a couple of hours. So I'd recommend to do that. They'll be the best judge as to what they think it might be worth. But I think the resale value is going to be really good at that low mileage, is my personal opinion.
Let me throw a monkey wrench into that idea. So I've seen a video where
yes,
I don't know if you've seen it, but someone's replaced.
I've seen it.
That center console with the new center console. So I'm not sure about the steering wheel. I'm pretty sure you can't change the steering wheel because it requires different wiring. But the console, if you're really interested in the console, you can change the console. I think the price was around $1,600 US for the console.
It was actually $800 US.
But he bought two of them. I think. That's right. Yeah. So it's $800 US. But the problem is that the card reader needs to be paired to the car, and so it requires Tesla service in order to do it. But they are selling them, I think, or you can order them through the service center. But you got to make sure you have someone who knows what they're doing. But that might be an inexpensive way of if you're willing to forego the steering wheel, of just upgrading the center console. Didn't look like a big tough job. So. No,
it didn't, and I'm hoping that the 2021s that didn't come with the heated steering wheel, I have the wiring for it. I'm not sure about the 2020, to your point, Kevin. So it could be a wiring harness issue. Aaron, let's see. Any speculation on when the FSD beta gets extended to Canada? So it's a mystery. I don't think we're going to see it until the spring, because I'm not sure that the hardcore winter driving, and Canada is known for its relatively harsh winters, is conducive to the FSD beta. My guess is sometime in the spring.
Yeah, minimum, I think. Minimum.
Yeah. Jordan had asked this question about whether premium connectivity is worth it. I mean, to me, it's a convenience thing, because like I said, most things can be done with tethering your phone. I believe even the traffic and the satellite maps can be done with a data connection over the phone. So to me, it's more of a convenience thing that you don't have to worry about tethering. I personally, for me, would say it's worth it. But I think that's going to be an individual decision for most people.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of using it as well. One of the sites I use in my browser all the time is Tesla Waze. And it's basically a web version of the Waze app that shows you speed traps and weather and altitude. And it's fantastic. I just love it. I use it every day. And honestly, if I had to pair my phone and go through it, I mean, I'm sure I could do it, but it's just so convenient having the premium connectivity. And so I think it's a personal decision. I do use when I'm sitting around waiting for my kids to finish certain things. I do catch up on some Netflix from time to time. So, I really enjoy it.
One of the things that I would like to see, though, is I would like to see an annual option. Right now, it's only monthly.
Yeah.
And if they ever offer like a 12-month, for a discount, so it's because they're taking your money up front. Sometimes you get a discount when that happens. I'd really like to see that, so you could just pay annually, not have to worry about it, and potentially get a little bit of a discount. All right. I guess the mud flaps are out of stock. I didn't even know. So
Ian, I got to tell you, I hate the Tesla mud flaps. And I would never.
I knew you were going to say that, Kevin.
I would never put them on my car, ever. You know, I just think they're the ugliest things on earth. There are lots of different options, including Amazon. I would highly recommend looking at a third party. Ian, I've got a white Model 3 with white matched white mud flaps, and I think it looks awesome. I just love them. I even if I wasn't in the snow, I'd keep them on because I like the way they look. So,
when will the UK SR Plus see a price drop like in the US? I'm assuming that's the Model 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's nobody really knows, but usually, once it happens in the US, it'll probably happen in other jurisdictions, but who knows when.
I really don't like the Tesla's currency conversion. Canada and the US,
especially for the UK, it's pretty rough. Last time I did that math.
Canada and the US, it's bad, but I've seen other jurisdictions on some of the other sites, and man, they got to do a better job, I think, on the currency bit. Maybe that Bitcoin piece is. Maybe they want to get better at it. I don't know, but
maybe it's a hedge.
Maybe
that's actually a really interesting thought. It could be a currency hedge, right? So
maybe take a loss on the currency hedge and use your profits from Bitcoin to subsidize a better price internationally. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? This viewer arrived late and was wanting to know also, I guess, about the price reduction. I guess we just covered that, didn't we? Yeah. Okay. I think at this point in time, we've been at it for a bit. We'll call it a day. I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you got any value from this discussion, please do hit that subscribe button, thumbs up. It really helps the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And Kevin and I plan to do a monthly series here. We do target it at the new Tesla owners or people thinking about buying a Tesla. So we'll be back next month with another full interactive Q&A session. And again, I really, really do appreciate your spending your time with us. Any closing comments from yourself, Kevin?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending and giving us your time today. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So everybody have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will catch you on the next one. Tesla Canuck and TeslaKevv over and out. Cheers. Bye.